According to General Hospital rumors, Jen Sidwell and Sonny Corinthos' feud is going to heat up, with the criminal launching a devastating strike on Port Charles's top crime lord. After all, Sidwell rubbed Sonny the wrong way when he offered to buy his PC crime syndicate and was turned down. Sidwell despises hearing the word no, so he's ready to teach Sonny a hard lesson about why no one ever turns down a proposal from him. The GH preview for the week of June 30th to July 4th focuses on Sidwell and Sonny's rage-fueled conflict. Nevertheless, the final two scenes are horrifying. Fire is hurled through Charlie's pub's window, and Kristina Corinthos is seen hovering behind the bar. As the fire catches some gasoline and develops velocity, a footage of Sonny's face flashes across the screen, with Alexis Davis's voice in the background exclaiming, "I'm not going to bury another daughter." Unfortunately, it appears that Kristina will be caught in the crossfire of this mob war, which is not good given the young woman's mental state. But how about her physical state? Alexis' voice quivers as she lashes out at Sonny about the possibility of another of her children dying. Alexis will never get over losing Sam McCall, but another daughter dying would ruin her mother, who is holding on by a thread at the moment. Will the fire at Charlie's be bad? Will Kristina sustain life-threatening injuries? This might go several ways. On the one hand, Sonny, Jason Morgan, or another character could break into Charlie's and save Kristina before things became bad. There's also the possibility that a character would risk their life to get Kristina out in the nick of time. But she still teeters as she battles for her survival. Even if Kristina just receives a few scratches, the situation will trigger Alexis' PTSD and all that happened with Sam. If Kristina is on the verge of death, Alexis will be a complete wreck, and she will undoubtedly blame Sonny for her daughter's current dilemma. General Hospital spoilers indicate that the drama will approach fever pitch in Port Charles during the week of June 30th, so either option would bring anxiety, stress, and chaos for Kristina and her loved ones, especially her mother. Smoke hung to the early morning air like a curse, thick and stifling, as the mayhem of the night before faded into frightening calm. The fire had been swift and persistent, tearing through Charlie's pub with ferocity that no one had anticipated. It had taken first responders over 2 hours to establish control, and the harm had already been done. The structure was devastated and barely recognizable. Kristina Corinthos Davis, who was inside when the fire began, was now comatose in the hospital's intensive care unit, her fate unknown. The call had came in little after midnight. Alexis had been sleeping when her phone rang. The voice on the other end sounded frantic. Molly attempting to form words between weeping. Kristina had been to Charlie's to check on the kitchen's new suppliers for the day crew. It should have been a routine stop, but something went wrong. There was an explosion. Kristina hadn't made it out on time. By the time Alexis arrived at General Hospital, she was shaking. She discovered Molly pacing the waiting room floor, covered in soot and shivering like a leaf. TJ stood behind her, his face pallid from fear. He'd already been called in to advise, but even his medical expertise hadn't prepared him for the sight of Kristina being carried in on a stretcher, her body limp, her skin scorched with burns, and a breathing tube already in place. "Is she?" Alexis began but could not finish. She could not bring herself to inquire whether her daughter was dying. "She's alive," TJ replied softly, "but it's horrible. She has smoke inhalation. She suffered burns on her hands, arms, and back. They are deep, Mom. She is intubated. They are keeping her sedated." The words did not feel authentic. Alexis felt as if she were floating beyond her own body. Kristina, her wild and radiant daughter, who had survived so much, cults, sorrow, addiction, self-doubt, was now clinging to life as a result of an unexpected fire. The waiting room filled up over the following hour. Sonny arrived first, motionless and sullen, his countenance etched in rock. He didn't say anything when he saw Alexis. He just nodded before turning to TJ and requesting the entire medical report. Dante arrived next, followed by Sam and last Ava, her eyes rimmed crimson with worry. Charlie's was formerly her place. She was still connected to it, and more importantly, she cared about Kristina. Nobody knew what started the fire. Arson was on the table. The fire marshal discovered evidence of an accelerant, which made everyone's stomach drop. Someone had set the fire on purpose, and someone knew Kristina was going to be there. Sonny's initial reaction was outrage. He roamed the halls like a caged animal, yelling orders at his soldiers and demanding answers. Who would do this? Who had targeted one of his kids? Was there a message? Is there a threat? Perhaps something more personal? While Sunny raged, Alexis stayed at Kristina's side for as long as she was permitted. She sat in the ICU room, holding her daughter's bandaged hand and whispering memories about Kristina's upbringing, reluctant to face the possibility that her daughter might never open her eyes again. Sam and Molly moved in and out, attempting to support both their mother and one another. The sisters had battled with Kristina frequently, and sometimes passionately, but nothing drew a family closer together like dread. The three of them had always been complicated, daughters of different fathers, different paths, but right now all that mattered was that they were Davis girls, and one of them was struggling for survival. The initial 48 hours were essential. The physicians repeated it like a mantra. Kristina had been stabilized, but complications loomed. Infection, fluid imbalance, and possible lung damage from the smoke. When her vitals soared, sirens went out and nurses swarmed in. Alexis flinched each time. She refused to leave the room and relax. Even when her head spun with tiredness, she remained fixed to her daughter's bed, hoping that her presence would somehow connect Kristina to the world. On the third night, a breakthrough occurred. Kristina's oxygen levels have improved. They started the laborious process of weaning her off the ventilator. When her eyes opened for the first time, Alexis nearly fainted with relief. Her voice cracked as she phoned for a nurse, grasping Kristina's hand as if scared she would go again. "Kristina," Alexis said softly, her throat stiff. "Sweetheart, this is Mom. You are in the hospital. You are safe." Kristina blinked slowly, her eyes filled with perplexity. She attempted to speak, but the dryness of her throat made this impossible. A nurse gently wiped her lips with water and reminded her not to strain. She was still in pain and too weak to move, but she was awake. Alive. That was enough for now. News of her healing spread throughout the hospital. Sunny arrived next, his typical stoicism cracking slightly as he hovered over the bed. "You scared the hell out of me," he whispered, running his fingers over her hair. "But you are powerful like your mother. Just like the Davis women." Kristina smiled weakly, but it ached. Her body ached and everything seemed strange. The last thing she remembered was the smell of gasoline, followed by a loud blast and flames. "I didn't think I was going to make it," she said, her voice raspy and harsh. "You did," Sunny answered. "And now we're going to find the person who did this to you." But the mystery grew deeper. Investigators had few leads. The security footage from the alley behind Charlie's had inexplicably disappeared. Witnesses were few. The pub was closed to patrons at the time of the fire, and Kristina was the only one present. Whoever ignited it knew she'd be alone. It had a targeted feel about it. Dante began working on the case himself, with assistance from the PCPD and Sunny's secret squad. Ava turned over previous security videos from her owning days in case they may identify somebody suspicious who had been lurking around in recent weeks. Molly, still suffering from the tragedy of nearly losing her sister, immersed herself into study, searching over comparable cases to see if there was a pattern they'd all overlooked. But the question lingered. Why Kristina? What threat did she present? She wasn't part of the mob. She did not meddle in politics. She managed a tiny community outreach organization, worked at the pub, and tried to keep her nose clean. She had enemies just as everyone else in Port Charles. But is it enough to try to kill her? One theory started to take shape. Kristina had recently begun working with at-risk adolescents at her outreach center. Several of those children came from problematic families, and some had a history of criminal activity. One youngster, Jaden Mills, had run away from home and told Kristina about the abuse he had received from his stepfather, a man with a sealed juvenile record and ties to a notorious crime ring. Kristina had quietly helped Jaden submit a police report. She had encouraged him to speak out. The timing seemed strange. The fire occurred just days after Ray Collier was questioned by the PCPD. TJ identified the connection first. He quietly delivered the information to Dante, who agreed to investigate Ray's whereabouts the night of the fire. But Ray had a questionable alibi, which was officially verified by his girlfriend. Nonetheless, there was disquiet. Kristina had pricked the bear. Had the bear retaliated? While the investigation continued, Kristina began the difficult process of recuperation. The burns on her arms and back required frequent attention. Physical treatment loomed ahead. She frequently cried at night from pain, fear, and the emotional toll of almost dying. But she never let it show during the daytime. She maintained a strong face for her family, the nurses, and even herself. Molly and Sam paid daily visits. Sam delivered books and flowers. Molly asked many questions, hovering like a scared bird. Alexis, who is now a permanent fixture by her daughter's bedside, attempted to blend her legal knowledge with maternal concern. "You don't have to be strong all the time," Alexis whispered one night, stroking Kristina's hair away from her face. "I do," Kristina said, "because if I stop, I don't know if I'll be able to start again." However, Kristina was actually outraged, angry that someone had attempted to steal her life. She was furious because she had no recollection of how the fire started, angry that her world had been torn apart just as she was starting to restore it. She had been proud of her progress, sober, responsible, and grounded. And now she was broken again with stitches and scars. The outreach center was temporarily shuttered. Charlie's job was no longer viable due to the damage. And the freedom she had finally grown to appreciate, the comfort of independence, had been taken away from her overnight. Sunny promised to employ 24/7 security. She refused. She did not want to be watched. She wished to feel protected again without a bodyguard hanging around. But one day, while sitting in the rehab gym trying to stretch her wounded muscles, she noticed a man watching her from the hallway. He was tall, wore a baseball cap, and did not belong. She froze, her instincts screaming. By the time a nurse arrived to check on her, the man had left. She reported it immediately. Security was strengthened. Surveillance was examined. But what about the footage? Deleted again. Now everyone was on high alert. Kristina couldn't shake the idea that the fire was more than simply a warning. It was part of something bigger. Someone wanted to terrify her. Someone wanted her to be silent. And she wasn't about to let them win. She pushed herself through therapy. She sought explanations from Dante. She went through the center's files again, seeking for any overlooked details or names. She resumed journaling, a practice she had abandoned years before, recording everything she remembered, every feeling, and every half-memory that surfaced. During one of her writing sessions, she remembered something new. The odor of gasoline. Not just smoke but gas. And a voice. A male with a low voice says, "She won't know what hit her." It was not clear. It wasn't sufficient for an arrest. But there was something. She gave the information to Dante, who took it seriously. He reviewed the witness list. A new name emerged. Someone spotted outside the bar hours before the explosion. Gavin Marks is a known acquaintance of Ray Collier. He'd lately been freed on parole. A check of his flat yielded burner phones, a map of Port Charles with Charlie's location indicated, and a pair of gloves with trace amounts of accelerant. It was not conclusive, but it was progress. Dante made the arrest quietly, and Gavin was taken in for questioning. Kristina, gazing from the hospital window, felt her first true breath of hope since the fire. Her rehabilitation wasn't complete. Her body still hurt. Her nightmares were frequently filled with fire and horror. But she was alive. She was fighting. And the fire that had attempted to destroy her had instead sparked something deeper. A determination to protect others, to speak up, and to never allow herself to be hushed or threatened again. Port Charles would discover that Kristina Corinthos Davis was not a victim. She had survived. And she was only getting started. According to General Hospital teasers, a war between Sunny Corinthos and Jen Sidwell will erupt during the week of June 30th to July 4th, and regrettably, a very intoxicated Natalia Ramirez and her impending fate could exacerbate an already horrible scenario. According to reports, Sidwell will be the first to attack when Charlie's pub catches fire, with Sunny's daughter, Kristina Corinthos Davis, still inside. However, at this stage, it is difficult to determine whether Sidwell is behind this. Will Kristina walk out of this with a few scratches, or will she be fighting for her survival? Her fate is in the balance, but Natalia is another individual who could die. The GH peak for the week of June 30th to July 4th shows Natalia on a couch, visibly intoxicated. During a video, she slumps over, her eyes drift to the back of her head, and she passes out. Will something worse occur? The daytime soap is notorious for using out-of-context promotional footage to mislead viewers. The GH Weekly teaser frequently presents a story that does not play out on television, so it's difficult to predict whether Natalia will die, but it's always fascinating to speculate. Marco Rios has been concerned about Sonny going after Natalia and getting rid of her for good ever since he learned that his mother was going to depart town and not cooperate with ADA Justine Turner on a deal for her DUI. Natalia had information that could lead to Sonny's arrest, and she told him about it. Marco understands how mafia lords operate because of his father. They rarely allow people with shady backgrounds to live. Sonny appeared to be planning a new life for Natalia, but the bad news is that she assumed he was accompanying her. When she learned he wasn't, Natalia went to drink, which has become a habit for her lately. Despite being told she was leaving for her new life straight immediately, she slipped past Sonny's security guard in front of her hotel room and attended at Daisy's christening on the Friday, June 27th episode. Sonny will not tolerate this type of behavior and will most likely make sure Natalia is promptly returned to her hotel room. Sonny may need to postpone any travel arrangements while she is inebriated. He'll have one of his goons bring her back away from his granddaughter's wonderful celebration. Could Natalia have suffered from alcohol poisoning, as no one knows how much she drank? Could she die between the time she is returned to her hotel and when she is found? It's not difficult to imagine Marco being the one to discover his mother dead on the couch, and naturally assuming that this was Sonny's skilled work rather than alcohol poisoning. Sidwell's fire in Charlie's pub could have been tiny, like a warning to Sonny, without crossing a line. It's difficult to predict whether the fire will spread quickly and bring Kristina life-threatening injuries, or if it will be little and she'll be able to escape easily. However, there is always the possibility that Sidwell is not responsible for the fire, and that an undiscovered threat lurks in the shadows. Regardless, if Natalia dies and Marco and Sidwell suspect Sonny, it could spark a mafia war. Sidwell and Natalia were not close, but as his son's mother, it will hurt to know that Sonny reacted this way against his family. Furthermore, if Marco is offended, Sidwell will seek retaliation. General Hospital spoilers reveal that Sidwell and Sonny's loved ones will be caught in the crossfire as these two crooks compete for bragging rights as the greatest lawbreakers in the little town. However, how much damage will be done in this conflict, and how many lives will be lost? Natalia Rogers Ramirez never expected her night to end in blood and turmoil. She'd come to the Port Charles Harbor Club to unwind. A late dinner, a few drinks, nothing unusual. It had been a tough week juggling preparations for her new Broadway production, and her daughter Blaze's growing uneasiness over the rumors surrounding Kristina and Sonny Corinthos. Natalia had fought too hard to safeguard her image and rebuild herself after a turbulent past. That night, she was meant to be invisible. Just another woman nursing a martini in a city that never sleeps. But sometime between her third and fourth drink, the line between calm escape and disaster blurred, and Natalia passed it without recognizing the danger that lay beyond. By the time someone observed her weaving out of the lounge and into the parking garage, she had already begun slurring her words. A valet attempted to stop her from driving, gently suggesting that she phone someone instead. Natalia, defiant and proud, waved him away with a harsh tongue and a wobbly heel. She insisted she was okay, ordered him to mind his own business, and struggled with her keys until she located the correct one. Nobody stopped her. Not really. And seconds later, her luxury vehicle sped out into the night, the tires screeching as she twisted too quickly, losing control. The crash happened less than 2 miles down the road, in a twisted swirl of broken glass, bent metal, and a concrete barrier that split her automobile in half. The paramedics arrived within minutes, but it was too late. Natalia was pronounced dead on the scene, her corpse twisted beneath the dashboard, and the distinct odor of alcohol filled the air. The news of her death spread like wildfire across Port Charles, and by dawn speculation permeated every corner of the town. At first it was deemed an accident. Tragic. Unfortunate. Avoidable. But not suspicious. That all altered within 24 hours. Detective Chase was the first to raise his eyebrow. Surveillance footage from the club captured a man standing near Natalia's car just minutes before she stumbled outside. The image was grainy and unclear, but the man's posture was familiar. He wasn't anyone Natalia knew, that was obvious. But he appeared deliberate. Intentional. like someone waiting for the appropriate time. Chase flagged it, but without a firm name, the trail had already cooled. Next came the toxicological report. Yes, Natalia was intoxicated, but she was also drugged. A benzodiazepine was discovered in her system, which is not usually coupled with alcohol and was absolutely not prescribed for her. It was enough to produce confusion, delayed reflexes, and blackouts. Natalia had little chance once she got behind the wheel, given how much she drank. That detail turned the whole investigation on its head. Now, it was more than just a horrible accident. It may have been murder. Enter Jack Sidwell, Natalia's former colleague who has a reputation for being both chilly and violent. Sidwell, a well-known mob financier with silent investments in various underworld activities around the eastern seaboard, was more than just a wealthy individual. He dealt with leverage, secrets, and muttered threats behind closed doors. He had once been romantically linked with Natalia, although neither of them ever admitted it publicly. And even though their relationship had broken years before, Sidwell always made it apparent that Natalia was under his care, a claim with implicit ramifications for anybody who questioned it. When Sidwell learned of her death, and more significantly the drug in her system, he acted quickly. He pointed his finger directly at Sonny Corinthos. To outsiders, the link appeared thin. Sonny hadn't seen Natalia in weeks, and by all accounts, they hadn't spoken since a particularly intense disagreement about Kristina and Blaze's relationship. Natalia had been worried about her daughter's involvement with Sonny's family, particularly Kristina's volatile history. She had made her displeasure clear loudly and publicly. There had been threats of legal action and rumors of restraining orders. Some suspected that Natalia meant to depart Port Charles permanently, taking Blaze with her and essentially cutting all ties. So when she died unexpectedly and suspiciously, Sidwell presented a simple picture. Sonny Corinthos wanted Natalia out of the way, and he possessed the resources and ruthlessness to make it happen. The accusation circulated rapidly. Reporters circled like vultures. Online forums erupted with speculation. In the criminal underground, murmurs became cries for retaliation. Sidwell was more than simply angry. He was ready for battle. Sonny denied everything. He called the accusation ludicrous. "I didn't kill Natalia," he said calmly in a rare display of vulnerability. "I didn't even know she was drinking again." Carly, however, noticed the stress in his voice. She knew Sonny's hands shook when he was trapped, and his jaw clenched when he was hiding something. Sonny may not have killed Natalia personally, but the time and approach suggested that someone was trying to make a statement, or to make it appear as if Sonny had. Diane Miller, Sonny's trusted legal buddy, pushed him to remain silent. "Anything you say now will be used to burn you later," she warned you. But the devastation had already spread. Sidwell began to put pressure on Sonny's supporters, disrupting shipments via the ports, calling in long-buried debts, and signaling to other players that the Corinthos organization was collapsing from within. Jason Morgan returned from a brief time off-grid to find that the entire environment had transformed. He encountered Sonny in the backroom of Pozzolos, an ancient eatery that now serves as crisis headquarters. Sonny appeared tired, older, more frail, with the weight of suspicion crushing down on him like never before. "I didn't do this," Sonny repeated, his gaze fixed on Jason. "I believe you," Jason responded. "But Sidwell doesn't." Jason recommended a counterattack that was subtle but decisive. But Sonny hesitated. The stakes were too great now. With Natalia dead, Blaze devastated, and Kristina shattered, retribution might plunge everyone further into the bloodbath. However, doing nothing was its own form of death. Meanwhile, Kristina was in a downward spiral. The anguish over Natalia's death exposed a deeper hurt, one she hadn't addressed since Morgan's death, since losing her identity in the shadow of her father's violence. She blamed herself. In her heart, she believed that her relationship with Blaze had pushed Natalia over the line, sending her mother into a downward spiral that resulted in death. Blaze, distraught and alone, attempted to console Kristina, but she couldn't hear him. All she felt was remorse. "Maybe if we'd stayed apart," Kristina said one night, "she'd still be alive." Blaze clutched to her and sobbed. "Do not say that. Never say that." Their already tenuous relationship weakened under the pressure. Sidwell's next move was bolder. He conveyed a message, literally. A gift addressed to Sunny arrived at the Corinthos compound, wrapped in heavy brown paper and secured with a black ribbon. Inside is a single silver bullet inscribed with Natalia's initials. A remark beneath it reads, "Eye for an eye." Dante Falconeri, who had already been stretched thin by the probe, was forced to get involved. His devotion to Sunny as a parent clashed with his responsibilities as an investigator. He started an official investigation into Sunny's possible involvement, while knowing how it would further divide their family. Anna Devane entered softly behind the scenes. She didn't trust Sidwell. She recognized his type, a man who moved pawns from afar and left mayhem in his wake. She launched her own off-book inquiry, questioning Sidwell's acquaintances and tracing Natalia's last known correspondence. What she discovered disturbed her. Natalia communicated with someone from the WSB 3 days before her death, a liaison named Mark Lanning. Their discussion was encrypted, but the metadata revealed that Natalia had sought classified information about known organized crime syndicates, including Sidwell's own network. That changed everything. Anna delivered the information to Sunny personally. She was investigating Sidwell, Anna explained. Not you. Sunny's eyes narrowed. Why? We do not know yet. But if she was trying to expose him, it makes a lot more logical that he'd want her dead than you. It was the first time in days that Sunny felt able to breathe. Anna and Jason began to collaborate, discreetly devising a strategy to change the narrative. They spread misinformation, implying that Sidwell's organization had inside leaks. When Jordan Ashford offered immunity to one of his men, an enforcer called Rafe DeLuca, he flipped. Rafe claimed that Sidwell had been watching Natalia for weeks. He knew she was going to reveal something, a file, a recording, or perhaps even testimony. Sidwell wanted it gone. All of it. However, the damage to Sunny's empire could not be reversed that simply. In Brooklyn, a cargo of coffee beans disguised as something significantly more profitable was hijacked and destroyed. In Miami, one of Sunny's supporters switched sides and sided with Sidwell. In Port Charles, anonymous tips flooded the PCPD, accusing Sunny of everything from tax evasion to witness intimidation. It was a well-coordinated smear operation, a war of reputation rather than bullets. But the real conflict was about to start. Sidwell made one more move that caught the entire city off guard. He attended Natalia's memorial service dressed in black, accompanied by 2 bodyguards. Blaze, barely keeping herself together, sat in the front row with Kristina by her side. Sidwell knelt by the casket, placed a white rose and turned to face the room. She deserved better. He declared loudly enough for everyone to hear. She deserved justice. And I promise you everyone that she will have it. The menace was apparent. Jason moved quickly. He seized a shipment of weaponry destined for one of Sidwell's private docks. The message was clear. Cross this boundary and the fight comes to your house. Sidwell, ever calculating, answered with quiet rather than fire. 4 days, no new attacks occurred. There are no threats. Nothing moves. Until someone attempted to kidnap Kristina. It occurred at night, outside the Corinthos Davis residence. A dark van approached, tires silent on the street. Kristina had just stepped outside to retrieve her phone from her car, when 2 masked males approached her. She shouted, battled, and managed to kick one of them in the throat, just in time for Sunny's new security detail to rush out. Gunfire erupted. The van fled. Kristina was shaken but safe. That was the last straw. Sunny met with Jason and Anna. No more half measures, he announced. Sidwell started it. We finished it. Anna reluctantly nodded. We will do it my way. Clean. As legal as possible. Jason, who does not follow rules, prepared for conflict. As they prepared, Blaze made a secret decision of her own. She went to the press. In a live interview, she spoke about the threats she and her mother had received. She explained, sobbing, that Natalia was scared, not of Sunny, but of the people she had once trusted in the shadows. She concluded the conversation with a single plea. End the war. Stop telling lies. My mother deserves peace. The public's opinion evolved. Sidwell's allies started to separate themselves. The WSB initiated a complete investigation. Sidwell fled from his apartment, his contacts went dark, and his operations crumbled. Rumors circulated that he had fled the country or was silenced by his own troops.